Hi, and welcome back to Alignment by Tua. If you are new here, my name is Tua Marina, and this podcast is where we explore the nervous system. We explore healing and what it actually means to live in alignment with yourself, not just mentally, but physically and emotionally too. And today's episode is one I have wanted to make for quite a long time because there are so many misconceptions right now around the nervous system. You hear things like just shake your body, just do breath work, just regulate. And while many of those tools can be helpful, they are helpful, I kept asking myself one question over and over and over again while researching for this episode and also working with clients. Why should I actually do this? Not just what works, but what actually moves the needle. Because life will always bring you stress. Things will happen that increase cortisol. Things will challenge you. Things will activate your nervous system. That is not the problem. The real question is, does your nervous system know how to recover? Because a healthy nervous system doesn't mean being calm all the time. It means being flexible. It means that you can move into activation and then you can return to regulation. Just like a hiccup, not like a full collapse. And in this episode, I want to share 5 things you can do completely for free in your home that have the biggest impact on your nervous system. And they are not the trendy tools that you have seen already. They are not any hacks. This is the foundation. Things that actually change how your body experiences stress day after day. One of the biggest misunderstandings that I see right now, and if I can be honest with you, something I misunderstood myself years ago, is the idea that a healthy nervous system means always feeling calm, always relaxed, always grounded, always peaceful. Almost like the goal of healing is to become this very still, very regulated, almost untouched version of yourself. But that is not how the nervous system works. And more importantly, that is not how a healthy human works. Because the nervous system is not calm all the time. A nervous system is flexible. It knows how to move. And the ways I often explain this, both to clients and to myself, is that regulation is not about never getting activated. It is about knowing how to come back, knowing that your body can rise and then settle again. Because the truth is, we are built for activation. We actually have 2 main branches of the nervous system that are constantly working together. One is the sympathetic nervous system, which most people associate with fight or flight. And then we have the parasympathetic nervous system, which supports rest, digestion, recovery, and restoration. But here is where I see a lot of misunderstanding happening. The sympathetic nervous system has gotten this reputation, like almost like it is the enemy. Like activation itself is dangerous. Like feeling stressed or alert or activated means something that something is wrong. But the sympathetic nervous system is not bad. It is not dangerous. And it is definitely not something to avoid. It is what gets you out of bed in the morning. It is what helps you focus when you have something important to do. And it is what allows you to react quickly if something unexpected happens, like slamming the brakes in the traffic or stepping back when something falls near you. It is also what helps you perform, create, move forward, and take action. So without the sympathetic activation, you wouldn't have energy, you wouldn't have motivation, you wouldn't have momentum. So activation itself is not the problem. The problem is when activation becomes your default state instead of a temporary response. And I've seen this so clearly not just in research, but in real life, in clients, in people around me, and in myself, where you are technically functioning. You are showing up, you're doing these things, you're answering messages, you're working, you are staying busy. But underneath that, your body never truly comes back down. Your shoulders stay tight, your jaw stay clenched, and your breath stays shallow. So you wake up tired, you go to bed tired, and even when nothing dramatic is happening, your body still feels like it is preparing for something. And that is not because activation happened. That is because activation never resolved. And this is where suppressed emotions play a huge role. Because when emotions do not get expressed, when frustration gets swallowed, and when sadness gets pushed down, when anger gets labeled as now you're too much, the nervous system never gets closure and the cycle never completes. So the activation, it stays in the body, and it is not always loud. Sometimes it's very quiet, but constantly. And over time, that constant activation becomes what we call chronic stress, which is not the result of one stressful moment. No, it's hundreds of unresolved ones, layered, accumulated, stored. And chronic stress doesn't just stay in the mind, it shows up in the body, and it shows up in ways people don't connect back to the nervous system. It affects your sleep because your body doesn't feel safe enough to fully rest. It affects digestion because your system stays in alert mode instead of repair mode. And it affects hormones because cortisol, it stays elevated longer than it should. It also affects the immune system because the body is constantly allocating resources to survival instead of healing. And again, this is not because activation happened one time, but because it never resolved. And when I truly understood that, not just intellectually, but in my own body, and when I felt it and let it land, that is when my relationship with the nervous system completely changed, because I became calmer. I became calmer because I stopped trying to eliminate activation and I started learning how to complete the cycle. A healthy nervous system, it fluctuates, it moves, it activates, and then it settles, it rises, and then it returns. And this is something I had to learn over time, not just intellectually, but by paying attention to my own body. Because I used to think that regulation meant staying calm all the time. That if I felt that if I felt stressed, overwhelmed, or reactive, it meant something was wrong. But the truth that I learned over time is that a healthy nervous system is not still. It is responsive, and it adapts to your life and to your environment, to the things that is happening around you. It is responding to what is happening around you, and then it comes back to center. And one of the biggest misunderstandings I see now is around cortisol. Cortisol has become almost like a villain in the wellness world. People talk about it like it is something dangerous, like something to eliminate. But cortisol itself is not dangerous. Cortisol is necessary. First, you need cortisol to wake up in the morning. That first feeling of alertness, that is cortisol. You need cortisol to handle challenges, to meet deadlines, to focus when something matters. Basically, you need cortisol to move through life. Without it, you would feel flat, foggy, and unable to respond to the world around you. So again, activation itself is not the issue. The issue begins when cortisol stays elevated for too long and when the nervous system never returns to baseline. And baseline doesn't mean perfect calm. That baseline means that your body knows how to come back to neutral. It can come back to safety and to steadiness. And this is where many people start to feel overwhelmed because stress kept happening, not just one time. It kept happening and the body never got a chance to fully recover. It is like stacking stress on top of stress on top of stress without ever letting the nervous system exhale. Okay. And over time, that constant state of alertness starts to feel normal. You stop noticing how tense your shoulders are. You stop noticing how shallow your breath has become. You stop noticing how tired you feel because you have lived that way for so long. Until one day, when the body starts sending louder signals. Signals like fatigue, brain fog, digestive issues, irritability, feeling overwhelmed by small things. And my love, this is not because you are weak. This is because your nervous system never got to return. And a metaphor I often come back to because it is very visual is waves in the ocean. Think of waves in the ocean. A healthy nervous system looks like waves. They rise and then they fall. They rise and then they settle. There is this movement, but there is also recovery. But when the nervous system stays activated for too long, it stops looking like waves and starts looking like a storm that never ends, that constant wind, that constant pressure, that constant movement. There's no stillness in between. No, you can't come back up to the surface and take a breath. And eventually, even strong systems, they get exhausted in a storm that never pauses, and you get out of breath. And this is where many people misunderstand regulation. They think that regulation means avoiding stress, that you have to avoid a difficult situation or avoid the discomfort or avoid the activation. But regulation is not about eliminating stress. That is not realistic. And that is not human. We all will meet stressors in our life, regardless if you are living in a remote island. Regulation, what it is about recovery. It is about giving your nervous system the signal it needs to come back down after activation and to complete the cycle. Because resilience is not the absence of stress. Resilience is the ability to recover from it. And that shift in understanding from avoiding stress to supporting recovery, it changes how you approach it. Okay, so not with fear of activation, but you can still have that confidence in your body's ability to return. So when we talk about regulating the nervous system, we probably jump to think about the techniques, to think about breath work, to think about cold exposure, somatic shaking, humming. And again, these tools are helpful. I use them in my daily life. They work because they stimulate the vagus nerve and they shift breathing patterns and they create moments of release. But over years and through my own experience, through studying this and through working with people, through living in this world every single day, I have realized something very clearly. Techniques help, but foundations regulate. And if the foundations of your life are dysregulating you on a daily basis, no amount of occasional breathwork will fully compensate for that. So when I think about nervous system health now, today, I don't first think about the tools. I think about conditions. What conditions is your nervous system living inside every single day? Because regulation is not something you do once and then you're done and you will have a regulated nervous system for the rest of your life. It is something your life either supports or constantly interrupts. And I'm going to share 5 pillars, and these are the ones I see impacting the nervous system the most, again and again and again. And they're probably not trendy. I don't know if you have ever heard about them, but they aren't complicated either. So the first pillar, and honestly one of the most powerful ones, and that is why I want to start with this one, is relationship safety. Because whether we realize it or not, our nervous systems are shaped in relationship, not in isolation. So from the very beginning of our lives, regulation happens through connection. So a baby comes into the world and a baby doesn't regulate alone. A child learns safety through tone of voice, through eye contact, through presence. And even later, even when we become adults, this does not change. We still regulate through connection. We regulate through feeling safe with people, through feeling seen, understood, and emotionally allowed. And I've seen this so many times in ways that people don't always connect back to the nervous system. A person can be doing everything right, eating well, exercising, sleeping enough, but if they are surrounded by relationships that feel unpredictable, that feels emotionally unsafe or tense, their nervous system never truly settles. Because safety is not just physical, it is relational. You can sit in your beautiful home with your healthy food, with your perfect routines. But if you are constantly walking on eggshells around someone, or suppressing how you feel, or feeling misunderstood, your nervous system stays alert. Maybe you're not even realizing it loudly. Maybe it's just that background tension that never turns off. But one safe relationship, even just one relationship, can change the entire state of the nervous system. One person that you can exhale around. One person who doesn't make you brace your body. One person who allows your nervous system to soften instead of tighten. Because humans regulate through connection, not isolation. That is why I love the modality somatic alignment, because you regulate in the witness of another person's nervous system. And this is also why relationship health is not just emotional work, it is nervous system work. Well, let's move on to the second pillar. And this is actually one that is very underestimated, blood sugar regulation. Because when we talk about stress, most people think about emotional stress, their deadlines, their conflicts, maybe they're overwhelmed. But one of the most powerful stress signals to the body is unstable blood sugar. And I've seen this both in myself and in so many people around me. You skip meals, you drink coffee on an empty stomach, and you rush through the day without eating properly. And then, oh, suddenly you feel anxious, irritable, shaky, overwhelmed. And you think that like nothing emotionally has happened, but you feel these things because your body's trying to survive on unstable fuel. When blood sugar drops too low, the body releases cortisol, not because something dangerous happened, but because the brain interprets low blood sugar as threat. And it thinks, we don't have enough fuel, we need to survive. So cortisol rises, adrenaline rises, and your nervous system activates. And many people mistake that activation for anxiety, when sometimes it is as simple as physiology. So this is why consistent meals and balanced nutrients and stable blood sugar are not just about nutrition, but they are about nervous system safety. Because when your body trusts that the fuel is coming regularly, it stops bringing in those unnecessary alarms. And through the third pillar, one that is kind of misunderstood whenever I would say a lot of people misunderstand this, and this is fascia release. Because fascia is not just physical tissue. Fascia is communication. Fascia is this connective network that wraps around your muscles, that wraps around your organs and your nerves, almost like a web that holds the body together. And something I find fascinating and something I've become more and more aware of is how strongly fascia responds to stress. When emotions are suppressed, when stress is not released, when the body braces again and again and again, your fascia tightens and it shortens and it becomes less elastic. And over time, this creates areas in the body that hold tension, and not just physically, but emotionally. And I think many people have felt this, even if they didn't have language for it. Those tight shoulders that never fully relax, or a jaw that stays clenched, or a chest that feels guarded. Not because something is happening right now in your life, in this day, in this minute, but because something happened before and the body never fully released it. So, this is why fascia release becomes powerful, not just as a trend. I know you've seen it on Instagram, probably seen it on my Instagram, but it is powerful because it is a form of communication with the nervous system. So, when you stretch slowly, when you move intentionally, and when you release tension in the body, you are telling the nervous system it is safe to let go now. Because tension held in the fascia, it sends constant signals to the brain. Signals that say stay alert. But when fascia softens, the nervous system softens with it. And we have 2 more pillars left. And the 4th pillar, and this maybe will sound like the most simple one, but don't underestimate its power. It is micro self check-ins. Because one of the biggest reasons people become chronically dysregulated is not because stress happens, but because stress goes unnoticed. It is ignored and it is accumulated. You move through the day on autopilot. You're answering your messages, you're working, you're moving from one task to the next without ever pausing long enough to ask, what state am I in right now? And when we do not check in, we do not adjust. We just keep pushing, even when the body's already signaling fatigue, even when tension is building, and even when overwhelm is rising. And over time, that creates overload. But micro check-ins, it changes that pattern. And this is not long meditations, not complicated rituals, just a brief pause midday, moments where you notice, okay, how am I breathing? Are my shoulders tense? Maybe I can roll them back and relax. Is my jaw tight? Maybe I can just stretch it a little bit, drink a glass of water. Am I rushing unnecessarily? So bringing in that kind of awareness, that creates regulation. And it doesn't do it like on the second, but you gradually build it because it interrupts escalation. It gives the nervous system moments of correction before overload happens. To our last pillar, our 5th pillar, and one that ties it all together, is rhythm and predictability. Because the nervous system reads safety through patterns, through repetition, through knowing what comes next. And this is something we often underestimate in modern life because, how many of us doesn't have irregular sleep? We are skipping meals, we have unpredictable schedules, and we are in constant change. So all of these, they create uncertainty in the body, and uncertainty feels unsafe to the nervous system. Because historically, unpredictability often meant danger. So when your life has rhythm, when meals happen regularly, when sleep happens at consistent times, when movement becomes routine, the nervous system begins to relax. And rhythm doesn't have to mean rigidity. I just want to mention because I have followed, a very controlled plan in my past. And this doesn't mean control, it means consistency. Like those gentle, repeated signals that tells the body you can trust the environment around you. So when we talk about regulating the nervous system, it is easy to get caught up in the idea that we need more tools, that we need more techniques, and that we need more routines, that we need more things to add. But what I have learned, both personally, most personally, but also through witnessing other people, is that regulation doesn't usually come from doing more, but it comes from doing the right things consistently. Not with perfection, not with intensity, but with repetition. Because the nervous system doesn't change through intensity, it changes through repetition, through small signals sent again and again and again that tell your body that you are safe enough to live here. And maybe as you have been listening today, you notice that none of these pillars are extreme. They are not expensive. They are not complicated. They are not things that you have to earn. They are basic. But basic doesn't mean unimportant. In fact, the basics are often what regulate us the most. Safe relationships, steady nourishment, movement and release in the body, moments of awareness, and just rhythm in daily life. These are not wellness trends. They are biological signals, signals that the body understands even when the mind is busy. And if there is one thing I want you to take with you from this episode is you don't need to eliminate stress to feel regulated. You need to support recovery again and again because life, it will activate you. Things will happen. Conversations will trigger emotions. Unexpected moments will raise cortisol. That is not failure. That is life. But when your nervous system has support, those moments don't take you out completely. They pass through you. Just like a hiccup, not like a collapse. And maybe the most powerful place to start is not by changing everything at once, but by choosing one pillar from today's episode. Just one. Maybe it is eating more regularly. Maybe it is paying attention to who your body relaxes around. Maybe it is releasing tension in your shoulders at the end of the day. Maybe it is pausing for one small check-in. Maybe it is creating more rhythm in your mornings. Not all five, just one. Because small changes, if you're doing them consistently, they are what reshape the nervous system over time. Not intensity, consistency. And the more you practice these foundations, the more your body begins to trust. Trust that recovery is possible. Trust that safety is available. Trust that regulation isn't something distant, but something you build moment by moment, day by day. And over time, those small shifts, they create something powerful. Not perfection, but resilience. Not constant calm, but the ability to return again and again. And that is what a healthy nervous system really looks like. And I truly, truly hope that today's episode gave you something tangible, not just something interesting to listen to, but something you can actually carry with you into your day. Because that is always my intention with this podcast, not to overwhelm you with information, but to give you understanding that you can live, understanding that helps you notice your body differently, to help you respond to yourself differently, and slowly build more safety from the inside out. So wherever you are right now, maybe take a small breath with me and just notice. What is one thing from today that you could begin practicing? Not tomorrow, but today. One small shift, one small signal to your nervous system that says, I'm listening. Because the more you listen to your body, the more your body learns to trust you. And that trust is where real regulation begins. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And thank you for choosing to understand yourself more deeply. And until next time, stay aligned, stay curious, and most important of all, stay true to yourself.